trauma is what you go through when you have a relationship that's supposed to be safe, like a marriage, or like your relationship with your mother or your father or your sibling or your best friends. These are supposed to be safe places for you. And if you discover that that these people have been lying about you, or, gossiping about you, or stealing from you, or anything like that, then it's a huge betrayal, and it's a breakdown of your whole sense of reality. We basically assume certain things. We have to assume the best of the people that we love, and we have to be able to assume that we're basically on the same page, and that kind of thing. So we end up getting blind spots. We end up getting betrayal blindness because we have this belief system that these people love me and they want the best for me, and they feel about me the way I feel about them, and this and that and the other thing. Well, if you're in a relationship with narcissistic people, there comes a day when you start to realize that your relationship is not mutual at all, and that all the feelings that you had for them and the behaviors that you took for granted were not mutual, were not being given back to you. And it is a huge betrayal. To give you an idea how big of a betrayal it is, they were talking this betrayal trauma research that I was doing. They were talking about the primary betrayal they were talking about was a romantic, a cheating, like someone cheating. From a cheating incident, a cheating spouse, not even a narcissistic spouse, just a cheating spouse, they say that it takes between 18 months to 3 years to get over that. Okay, so you take that and you combine it, you multiply it out for, like, say it's your spouse, your siblings, your parents, your friends, and it goes on and on and on for years. I mean, how long is that going to take you to heal from it? A smear campaign, we have these fancy words for it, but really what it is this gossip. It's simple, plain and simple gossip. And you wonder, why is it working so well? But they've been at it for a long time. They've been chipping away at this for a long time. They didn't just do this when you're learning about it. That they've been at it for weeks, months, or years. In my case, it was years. In my case, it was a decade. He'd been at setting this whole thing up, and it's just never been a level playing field. You're not the first person they've done it to. First of all, you've never looked at each other the same way. He never was, he or she was never trusting you, never invested in you, was never the same thing. They had you sized up as someone they were going to do this to eventually, if they needed to or when they needed to, and they just pulled the trigger on it. How do they smear you? Like, what is it that they do? Well, what they do is that between your people, their people, and the authorities, first they do things like try and make people think that you're gossiping about them, or make people jealous of you, or certainly they try to create some animosity towards you. And then when they decide they're going to do this thing, they will go to people that they know that they're pretty sure are going to either have a beef with you, are jealous of you, or that they've already set up to believe that you've been talking about them, or or you don't like them, or something like that. There are people that will readily betray you. Those are the first ones they go to, so that when it goes out into a bigger arena of people, it has some legs. It has some credibility. Signs that you have betrayal trauma are basically, they're the typical things. They're like, intense emotional pain, of course, depression and anxiety, going over and over the thing in your head, shame about how could I have let that happen, how could I not have known, how could I not have seen, how could I have made that mistake, loss of trust, not just of them, but of basically loss of trust in general, of people in general, of love in general, of yourself, basically, just total loss of trust, intense fear, a lot of fear about how am I going to survive, how am I going to make it in this world, how can I even trust myself, maybe I am crazy, maybe the kids are better off without me, maybe he's right, huge insecurity and a lot of anger when you were really an angry person before. Now you've got rage just comes up. And it's important to know, our emotions have purposes. Our emotions have reasons. And anger is telling you that you've been violated. Anger is telling you that something's happened, so you've been encroached on, and you need to do something. And so, these, which is true, which is actually true. So, these emotions do all have a purpose. So the point is to try and keep them under control so that you can use them for the purposes as intended. And what they'll do is when you're down and out, when you're in your very weakest moment, then they will strike. And it'll be very calculated when you get to know about it. It'll be going on for quite a while. And the damage will be done, and then it will be orchestrated how you'll find out about it. And that will also be, it'll be calculated in such a way so that you will be really in bad shape, really, really vulnerable, and perhaps have a very dramatic and emotional reaction. And, they'll say things about you that are either have like a little nugget of truth that's completely out of context, like have migraine headaches once a month or something, and you take some kind of medicine for that. They'll make it seem like you are a drug addict, you're on pills, that kind of thing. Or say you like to have a glass of wine on Friday night or something, and they'll be like, making it all about you, an alcoholic. They'll take pictures of the recycling bin with, all of their own beer bottles and stuff in the can. And that's the other thing they'll do is they'll project their stuff that they're doing actually onto you, and that way they'll also know in detail what the abuses are. They'll be able to describe them in detail. But there'll be things like, that you're abusive, that you are not taking care of the house while they're away at work, or, that you're spending their money like it's going out of style, that they can't keep up with you and you're spending, that kind of thing. And, or you're not having sex with them anymore, you're an addict, or you're crazy, you have some kind of mental disorder. Everyone's been acting so angry towards you and different towards you and removed from you and all that you've been getting the cold shoulder from everybody for such a long time that you are, emotionally wrung out. In my case, when this happened to me, I had literally died. I literally had a heart attack. And that's when it began. That's when he started doing this, talking about me behind my back. So that, a few months later, I was completely, just beside myself, completely. I'd been gaslit. It was like, everyone was denying what was going on. Everyone was acting so weird and acting so abusive and so distant. And I had just, literally, I was lucky to be alive. And it was like, my whole entire family, all the people closest to me, were acting like they were angry at me for being alive and angry at me for living and being disabled. It seemed like it was very clear that they resented me. But I had this emotional blindness because the truth of what was really happening was truly so awful, for one thing. But for the other thing is, it was so far from my frame of reference, because in my frame of reference, I had always told myself, and society always told me, there was no one ever came along and said that there was any potential for that your parents or your brother or your husband could possibly not love you, could possibly be conspiring against you. Especially when this isn't the way it's supposed to go. You've never done anything to these people but be completely devoted, but love them and try and be a great daughter, a great sister, a great wife. You've tried to do everything really, really well. And this isn't how it's supposed to work. How is it possible that these people that you've devoted your life to pleasing are saying really bad things about you and acting like you don't matter and acting like they don't love you and don't care about you. So it's just so far from your frame of reference that when they start saying things to you, like, you haven't been the same since the kids were born or something like that, you'll start thinking, blaming yourself. You're so full of shame that you don't talk to anybody. I didn't tell. The only person I told when my parents would be abusive towards me, the only person I told was my husband. And when he was abusive to me, I didn't tell anybody, because him marrying me was my evidence that I had that I was lovable after all. You know, because my parents were they never said I love you. They never protective of me. And so when he was crazy about me, wanted to marry me, I was like, see, I'm lovable after all. So I wasn't about to tell them he's now abusing me, because I was sure their answer would be, well, see, you're just so hard to love. You know, see, even he can love you. No, you're just impossible to love, which is what he was saying. You know, which is what he was saying. Now I get why your parents were always like that. You know, or, you know, he had set me up to have all these problems with all these different people, and now he was saying, don't you think that the common denominator is, you know, you? You know, of course, how could I argue with that? Because I absolutely did. The last thing I thought was that he was going around poisoning my relationships. You know, that just, you know, didn't compute to me. More or less plan that there's going to be a discard eventually. They may not know exactly when it's going to be, but you know, they make sure that they have a way out when they want to go. And my husband decided it was time to go because I was now sick and I needed his help. Plus, he now had, basically, he figured he got all the goodies out of being married to me that he was going to get, and you know, and also I knew him. You know, I knew him. To healthy people, that's intimacy. That's what our goal is to, you know, over time get to really know somebody and love somebody and all that. But this is an intimacy disorder, and so, you know, that was something he just could not stand. And same with my parents. You know, their biggest, all of the narcissists, their biggest fear is to be discovered, to be found out. So to be known by someone, especially someone who is different, who isn't buying into the narrative because they don't need the narrative. See, and I was always buying into the narrative when I was a kid and stuff because I believed it. But as I got older, I was starting to fall apart. Actually, this heart attack came after years of depression because I just felt disconnected. I felt like something was missing in my relationships and all this stuff. Well, this is what the problem was. It wasn't that I wanted to. I just wasn't like them, and I wasn't able to fake it. It was making me sick. It was literally killing me. And this was intolerable to all of them. And they couldn't just, you know, he couldn't just break up with me. He couldn't just have a regular divorce because, you know, he didn't have any more use for me, so that meant he had to destroy me. Plus, the other thing was he didn't want to give up any of his assets, or any of his friends, or any of his social status that he gained by being married to me. He wanted to still look like a perfectly good guy. He actually wanted to be come out like a victim. You know, actually, what it was is he had in his head, when I almost died, that he wanted that. Whatever was going to be his reality if I died was perfect, because then he would get to keep all the friends, all the assets, had all the control, and plus he'd get some sympathy. That was perfect. So he was still going for that goal. And, you know, and so he had to make me look really bad to do that. And, you know, hopefully, you know, maybe try me to commit suicide or, you know, something. And so, you know, he was just spreading terrible rumors about me and, you know, and painting me out to be doing these things that no one had ever seen me do. No one had ever seen any evidence of me doing these things. But he was able to, you know, say that I was. And I had been kind of, you know, distant and removed from people. And this is how it will go. And I'm sure this is the case. This is very typical. Is that I had, over time, because of the abuse and everything, I had been more isolated and more removed. And that's what they'll do first. First they'll isolate you from other people. And they get you down to just, you know, them and their friends as much as possible. What you can do is very little. I mean, you really can't do a whole lot about it. You don't want to try and, first of all, avoid reacting. You want to avoid reacting. You want to be careful. You want to be careful who you even try to tell the truth to. You know, really careful who you want to tell the truth to. And the best thing you can do is, if you have any hard evidence, provide that evidence to whoever it is, and then just leave it with them and don't tell them what you want them to do, or, you know, because people don't like to be told what to do. So, if you have any evidence, you have any hard evidence of, you know, that can prove that you are not, that the stuff he's saying is lies, definitely use that. Definitely use that. But aside from that, aside from anything that you can actually prove with hard evidence, the best thing you can do is just live your life and prove it by the way that you're living. And, you know, and hopefully, you know, the fact that you're here and hearing about it, if you're in the middle of this and you're hearing this now, that's good news. You know, because I didn't know about any of this until years after it was over. And so I had already made every mistake in the book. And it was really devastating. I mean, it was really, the impact it had was just really incredibly bad on me and my kids. I mean, he really did a pretty good job of destroying my life. You know, really, it was really devastating. And partly it was devastating because I was so vulnerable. I was just a textbook case of, like, you know, I had everything that made me a really prime target, especially that I had this really abusive family, and I had a lot of narcissistic friends. I had a lot of people that were easy for him to manipulate, and I didn't know that. You know, there's no way I could have known that. So that made it, you know, especially devastating. You know, so that's basically what to do about it. Is in this case, you really need to, it really will help if you can seek professional help. But here's the key. Seeking professional help really is helpful because this kind of trauma is so overwhelming, but you're going to run into problems because traditional therapy will give you just the wrong advice. Because well, first of all, it also depends on how well you understand what's going on. If you have a full grip on this, you know he's a narcissist, you know you've been smear campaigned, you got this landscape figured out, that will help. But even with that, mainstream therapy doesn't really know about narcissistic abuse. And I did a lot of research about betrayal trauma, and all the advice that they were giving was exactly wrong for a person who's been betrayed by a narcissist or many narcissists, because, you know, they were talking primarily about cheating, and they were saying, you know, to involve them in your healing process and, you know, try and work things out with them. And I was like, no, that is completely the wrong thing to do. So, you know, but you do definitely need to ask for help, and, you know, find a therapist that knows about betrayal trauma, knows about CPTSD, knows about personality disorders. I would say personality disorders first and trauma next, because the way that they would approach trauma is not going to be, they're not going to be as protective of you as they need to be if they don't understand that you were up against narcissistic abuse. Certain methods like EMDR, that really does help. That kind of unhooks some things from the CPTSD, from the emotional reactions you're having. It gets things out of your like lizard brain up into, so you can start using your executive functions better. Because in trauma, that's really what happens, is you get so overwhelmed. I mean, you can think about, you know, I mean, how upsetting that's going to be to your brain when you have everything crumbling to the ground about what your family stood for, your marriage stood for, your friendships, and all these people that you trusted all your life, and now you're finding out they've all betrayed you. You know, start doing the math, you start figuring out, okay, my mom's a narcissist. Well, that means they don't have any empathy, they don't really have an intact conscience, they don't have all the prerequisites for love, so that means my mother never loved me. You know, you start going through all this, like, you know, it's mind-blowing. It can take a long time to get through all of that. What makes it so different from, you know, like the infidelity betrayal and all that kind of stuff is exactly that. This is not something that just happened, you know, spur of the moment, without thinking and planning, and without a lot of, like, layer upon layer upon layer of lies and gaslighting and betrayal. And, you know, I mean, the amount of things that they had to go out of their way to say, the way that they had to be spending their time thinking about how to hurt you, you know, is just devastating. Whereas, you know, if someone has an affair, it's not like that usually. A regular person, not a narcissistic person, but just a regular person has an affair. I mean, but it's not going to be focused on just wanting to do mean things to you. That's not going to be the purpose of it. The purpose of having an affair is not to do mean things to you. It's just, it's something that they did where they didn't want to have to think about you at all. Well, that's not what's happening here. Here, this was a plotted plan that the person that you devoted your life to, the person that you were busy protecting and taking care of, is all the while backstabbing you to the people you care about the most. And the things that they will go after are the things that matter to you the very most. and the you know, the people that matter to you the very most, and the things that matter to you. And for me, it was relationships. My whole life was based on relationships and wanting to love and be loved in a community of people, and so and to have a family. And so of course that was what he went for first. Because it wouldn't come off as gossip either. They would come off acting concerned. That would be the big thing they would do, is they'd act concerned. But they would also make sure to pepper things like, well, I know she said this about you too, or you know, she's just not herself lately. I mean, she's making comments about how you're a bad mom, or you know, whatever it is, that, you know, like making sure to drop these little things to make people get really pissed off at you. And you know, to this day, I have no idea what he could have said to some of these people, because there were people that, you know, I'd known all my life that just completely turned on me, and I have no idea what he told them. But some of them I do know what he told them, because he told me, or you know, something came around where I figured it out what he was telling people. But there are some that are still a mystery. But he did a good job. And the main thing that was so devastating for me was that he went to my family first, because they were an abusive family and he knew he could. I was already the black sheep to begin with, so he knew he could get them to get on his side. And so but no one else would know that, because I was loyal to them, so I never told anybody about that. You know, I always wanted to make it seem like that is a loving family, and I hoped it would be. You know, he got them first, and then that was very convincing to everybody else. There's just really not anything you can do besides live a good life, and cut your losses. You know, basically, don't react to him. Don't give him a lot of supply for doing it. Don't defend yourself. Show any evidence you have if you have it, and then, you know, relocate, make new friends, whatever it is. Getting help for betrayal trauma is really something you need to ask for help. You need to go out and find some help, some professional help, because it's not just that easy to just, you know, get over it by yourself, and you'll kind of just keep going over it, not sleeping well, and it can go on for a long time. It really sap your reserves and affect your physical health. Have you experienced this smear campaign? What happened with you? Please answer in the comments.